The 10 a.m. Express.
Assalamu alaikum, and indeed a warm welcome to your 10 a.m. Express. Your host Ayesha Laatoe on your frequency 91.3 FM audio streaming at www.vocfm.co.za. So we're focusing on self-growth this morning, as it is on a Tuesday, motivating you and ourselves, our listeners, by having great guests online or in studio with us. So this morning, Mavis Ureke, a speaker at many events online with us to share, what self-growth really is. And when one looks at the world that we are living in today, that is characterized by volatility, uncertainty and complexity, and not forgetting ambiguity, where people constantly feel a loss of control, and I think happening to everyone at some time of their lives maybe. And I'm sure with lots of learners sitting there about to start the matric exams pretty soon, that is the mock exams for September, and thinking of what it is that they want to do in the future. So planning ahead and knowing your self-worth and that self-growth is extremely, extremely important. Mavis, a good morning to you, and thanks so much for being online with us this morning.
Good morning, and thanks for having me on the show.
Always a pleasure. Mavis, when we speak about self-growth, it's about the self. And I think many times, we forget that we are the greatest marketing tool of ourselves. And selling ourselves short is something that very often, or more than often, happens as well. So today we're going to get some tips from you exactly on how to go about that. So why must one have a personal development plan? Why is that so important?
So I think the first thing that we need to think about when we're talking about self-growth is that growth is actually an emotional need. We are born with that need to grow. So when we're younger, growth is almost automatic. It happens without you doing anything. So physical growth happens. Now you get to a point in your life where physical growth doesn't matter anymore. Yes, you will be growing, but it doesn't matter. You need to grow in other areas. So you need emotional progression, you need mental progression, you need spiritual progression, and those things are not automatic. You may have gone through the school system, but what you'll notice is that the school will probably focus on particular areas and leave other areas. That when you are actually done with your college and you're out there in the world, you realize, okay, what is my passion or my purpose? You actually didn't learn that in school. Nobody told you. What is your self-regard? What is your self-image, self-worthy? Nobody taught you that. So if you don't have a self-growth plan, chances are you might wander through life without knowing who you really are and what you're really worth, and that you're actually the biggest asset of your life. So if you develop yourself, you are bound to to move from, desire to destiny.
Okay. So when you say developing oneself now, often, like you've mentioned, when you've done your studies, you're done at university, so now you have your degree and thinking, okay, this is it now. And so you're working at the company and thinking, you know what, the owner should be on the company to send me to develop myself any further. But I speak about myself. You say self-development. How can the company develop me?
Okay. So if you look at the company, if I'm the one who's your employer, I'm going to develop you in areas that make me make more money. So I'm going to develop you to benefit myself.
There we go.
Okay? But if you then have your own personal growth plan, you're going to develop yourself as a whole person, as opposed to just looking at your career. So your career is one aspect of your life. You've got 7 life zones. Okay? You've got your marriage. Look at how many of us are struggling with marriage. And the reason is we go into it without skills. We have not developed ourselves. We hope that it will just work out. Look at how many of us are struggling with our finances. Okay, so much in debt. Why? We have not developed ourselves around our finances, how we manage our own personal finances. You may be an accountant. Surprisingly, most accountants are actually also swimming in debt because they've been taught to manage company money, but not their own personal finances. So if you don't have a personal growth plan that says, I need to develop myself so that I can manage my own finances, chances are you will struggle. If you don't have a self-growth plan that improves the quality of your thinking and the quality of your problem solving, your ability to solve problems, chances are you will struggle with the problem for years. Have you ever met someone who's got a problem, and since you've known them, they still have the same problem? What does that mean? They haven't grown mentally. There's no mental progression for them to be able to solve that particular problem. Okay, so you also have your spirituality. We live in desperate times now. If you look at how many things are happening, when you haven't developed yourself spiritually, you are not connected with source. You are actually not, in alignment with your purpose. You will live a life of quite desperation. And if you're desperation calls for desperate measures. Someone is going to come to you and offer you what looks like a solution just because you're out of alignment, and you probably go for it. So we need to develop ourselves so that we can have an inner core that is, an anger that helps us to go out into the world and do what we are here to do.
Okay, so you've mentioned some pointers here, which is very important, and I think in today's day and age, we speak about spirituality, mental growth, as you've mentioned, finances and marriage. So which one would you put on top of the list? And I know that you haven't given those, in a particular order. So if one speaks about self-growth, where do you start?
Okay, so you look at yourself as a whole person. So I would look at, so I have not actually mentioned the 7 life zones, I just mentioned a few. Okay, so the life zones, you've got your social life, okay, your lifestyle, how you live your life, your friends that you hang around with, okay, your physical. We now are living in times where we've got high stress, and the research has shown that 70% to 90% of doctors' visits is a result of inability to manage our own stresses, and that impacts on the body. So if you don't know your physicality and the lifestyle that you're living and how that is doing to your health, chances are you are just going to go to the doctor, and the doctor will give you medication. Many of us are on prescriptions, some prescription. Research has also shown that in 2014 only about 14 million people were prescribed with, a Prozac, which is an antidepressant. What that means is we're getting depressed not because we don't know who we are. We don't know how to manage our body. We don't know how to live a lifestyle that partners with your body for you to be able to achieve what you want to achieve in the world. So if you're not having a self-growth plan that allows you to become aware of how you function as a person, you live your life, at the mercy of perhaps the pharmacy or the doctor. And chances are, when you get that prescription, we know that medicine is the first killer. Mm-hmm. Okay, is the leading killer. Why? People get the wrong prescriptions, and when you go to the doctor, you actually have no idea what's going on with your body. So you basically at their mercy as well. And I'm not saying we shouldn't go to the doctors, but it pays for you to become aware of how you function, so that when someone says this, you say no. Okay, and also you have a choice. Awareness gives you choices. You can choose which way to go. But when you don't have awareness, chances are you are at the mercy of someone else's level of awareness. So they begin to prescribe or tell you what needs to get done. Okay, so your physical body, important, finances, social life, career. People get, into work and they start working, and some people don't like the work that they do. But here's the thing. We go through the school system.
Mavis, just before we touch on that point, can we go for ads? Please stay online with us, and to our listeners, please stay tuned.
Okay.
The 10 a.m. Express.
Assalamu alaikum and a warm welcome with a clock at 10:33, 91.3 FM. We're focusing on self-growth this morning with Mavis Ureke, is a speaker at many events, and Mavis is speaking about self-growth this morning. Mavis, just before you touch on the fact that you were speaking about going through school, but you've also mentioned earlier on, being in a career, but you're not happy with the things that you are doing.
So if you don't have a career growth plan, chances are you are stuck in that job. And the only way to get unstuck is to start developing yourself in the area that you're passionate about.
Okay. And now coming back to your point where we left off, speaking about, going through school as well.
So we do go through the education system, the school, the college. But unlike the definition of, educare, which means to draw out. So educate is the Latin word for education. So our education is actually supposed to draw out of us that which lies inside of us, our innate talents, gifts and passions. But half the time, when we go through the school system, you rarely get, an education that actually draws out of you, like it enables you to live out your talents and your gifts. So we end up just, operating from, the social influence to say, okay, what career must I go into? So all of us, most of us rather, we end up in jobs that we got there because at the time it was probably the in job. It was the one that, looked sophisticated enough for someone to actually go through or for it. Or your parents actually suggested that this is the job you need to do. Mm-hmm. But you're now doing that job. You're now working every day and you're exhausted, you're fatigued. You don't like what you do. What do? The only way out is a self-growth plan. You begin to develop yourself in the areas that you're passionate about. You begin to actually invest more time in discovering who you really are so that you can pursue your passions and your talents.
Okay, so let's just ask the question here, and there's one that comes from the listener also here that says, Ayesha, I have to respond, I'm working in ICU, and I promise you, whenever you really sit and have a conversation with a patient, then you will discover psychological and emotional trigger is the cause of the sign of and symptoms. Example, fast heart rate, chest pain, tight chest, high sugar or blood pressure, can go on and on, she says, but the doctor seems to ignore that part of the patient. Very, very important topic, she says. Yes, so commending you with this topic as well, Mavis. So thank you so much for that input. Yep. Mavis, so when we speak about personal development, what is the plan? And year one needs to know, you mentioned earlier your parents saying that this is the best route to go to because of the BEE systems and all of that. So is it important to define your goals?
It is important to define your goals, but in that starting point would probably be to look at your 7 key areas and say which one is giving me more stress at the moment.
Okay.
So I always say the area that is giving you more stress at the moment is the area that needs development. Okay. So if your finances are giving you stress, time for a personal growth plan. Okay, and the plan obviously involves the goals. It involves the learning, the training. I like what Mark Twain says. Yes. There's nothing training cannot do. Nothing is above its reach. It can turn bad morals into good. It can destroy bad principles and recreate good ones. It can lift men to angelship.
Okay, so what you're also saying here is that with regards to your goals as well, you need to prioritize.
You need to prioritize.
And then and when you've prioritized, what do you do then?
So when you prioritize, you are going to spend money on learning. Yes. You're going to spend, whether you say, you can start with 3% of your gross salary towards your personal development. So every month, without fail, there's something. You either buy a book, you go for a seminar, or you buy an audio, or you do something to develop yourself in the area that requires development. Okay, so you spend some money, and the more you increase the money, here's the thing, the more value you put on yourself, the more value you are able to add onto others. So because I spend hundreds and hundreds of thousands developing myself, when I go out there, I'm equipped to add more value to other people. And guess what? Everything increases. Your finances increases. Okay, your influence increases. Okay, your career, you are able to actually do it with more passion, but also getting the rewards that you think are, you deserve. Okay. Because you have been putting money onto yourself as the biggest asset. You are your own biggest asset. Not your car, not your house, but you. When you have developed yourself into that person that can attain whether that house or that car that you want, then you don't have any, hiccups or hindrances. Because most of the time we try to get these outside things when we've not become that person who can afford those things.
So Mavis, many times you set yourselves these many goals and you need to prioritize, as you've mentioned, but it's developing, and also implementing that development, which is very important because you want to see rewards, as you've just mentioned. So setting deadlines, is that important? Because often we have, a whole list of things that we want to do and the list just stays there because nothing is happening with the list because there's no deadline put to that list.
Okay, so for example, I always look each year and say, which area of my life do I want to develop the most this year? Not to say I would neglect the others, but I'll just look at which one do I want to develop the most this year. Okay, so if it's marriage, I want to develop more this year. What do? I'll make sure I've got a marriage seminar on the board. I've got books on marriage. I've got audios. I've got a coach or a mentor on marriage. Anything that can help me. Okay.
It's amazing that you're mentioning marriage.
What do you want to develop? And then you can't obviously do everything at the same time, and timelines very important depending on the person. You can say in 6 months I want to develop my financial literacy. In the next 6 months of my life I'm developing my relationship literacy. It depends on the individual. But the important thing, yes, timelines are important. But again, for me, it's not so much about the timelines. It's about seeing yourself growing. So if I am actually investing in that area of my life, can I see a change?
So Mavis, would you suggest also to recognize opportunities and threats is very important? So if you have your goals, know what the pros and the cons would be of those goals as well, and how it will affect other parts of your life as well.
Yes. So your goals must be in alignment. I always say when you look at a person, don't look at it one side. Don't look at yourself one-sided. Don't focus on career only. Because when you come back from work, you want supporting relationships at home. Okay. So you look at yourself to develop yourself holistically, although you can start with one area.
There we go. Mavis, can we go for ads to our listeners? Do stay tuned. Assalamu alaikum and a warm welcome. Our final segment with Mavis Ureke, speaker at many events focusing on self-growth this morning. Mavis, there's an important saying that says that if you don't think and plan in advance, you can easily end up being angry, frustrated and not satisfied with your life. So that self-development plan is of crucial, it's very crucial to have that. So when we speak about this plan and very often, as you've mentioned, the many things that one can do, you push yourself to the limits and so with that, as you've mentioned, you go to the doctor and you're totally stressed. So is it important to prioritize and look at the things that's going to bring you not just money, but, that satisfaction as well?
Precisely. So you also want, ultimately, you want fulfillment. So you can have all the money in the world, but you're unfulfilled. So that, for me, is not success. Success is something that gives you fulfillment. So if you've got a personal growth plan, it should be able to make you reflect on what is important for me as an individual.
Okay. So, one looks at, getting guidance as well. Is it important then to find somebody to assist you with your self-development plan?
So there are mentors, there are coaches, but you can also do it by yourself. Just looking at the 7 key areas of your life and saying, where do I lack skills? Because if you've got frustration, if you're angry, you're not getting the results you want, those are all indicators or signs that you lack skills in that particular area or you lack information. And the only way, if you've got a lot of fear in a particular area, that also is an indication that you lack, skills in that area. And the nice thing about skills is that you can develop them. You can learn them. It's never too late. So when you've got your self-growth plan, you realize that this area where I'm struggling, I need to learn. I need to upskill myself. I need to grow. And when you do that, when you start doing that, you can start seeing, the changes that you want to see in your life.
Yeah. Would you say that, the remedy for everyone would be the same if we speak about which areas must be developed first? Are we looking at the very same areas for everybody? Is there a set plan for that?
So like I said, when you look at your 7 key areas, which one is giving you the most stress?
Okay.
So if between the two of us, if we were to discuss, we find that maybe yours is family, maybe mine is money. So that's what we need to focus on. So you look at, that's why it's called a self-growth plan. So you reflect on your own life and say, here is my life. Here are the 7 key areas of my life. Which one is giving me the most, pain or confusion or fear at the moment?
Okay. We all know that you're not going to get instant results here. So how do one measure your progress?
So the interesting thing is about self-growth plan it's not a destination. Okay, it's a continuous, evolvement, transformation. It's a continuous journey until the day you die. That's the time you actually, stop learning. So you learn until the day you die. And the only way you can see results, you can see that you're growing, is by the results you begin to produce. Yes, what it is, Malcolm Gladwell said, you need 10,000 hours to develop a skill for you to become a master. Okay. Which means if you're learning something, how much time do you spend a day learning about it? Okay. For example, I read at least 30 pages a day. Okay, I read 30 pages a day on the particular subject that I'm interested in. If it's marriage, I'm going to read my 30 pages a day. How many hours am I spending a day? 10, maybe an hour. on that particular subject? How many hours do you spend on that particular subject that you are learning about? And that will tell you, the amount of knowledge. Even your language changes. When your language changes, you're becoming competent in that area. When you become competent in that area, you become more confident. You become more confident in that area, you begin to see the results.
Okay. When we speak about self-growth, and you've spoken at many seminars as well, do you find that, there are more women in search of, learning about self-growth than men, or is it, or are we looking at the balance, with regards to gender?
Okay, so because our particular seminar, the Women in Leadership Breakfast, is for women, okay? It is for women. But when I go into corporates, when I train on emotional intelligence, for example,
yes,
and we talk about growth as one way of, developing your emotional progression so that you've got health emotions and you're also able to self-regulate and you're also able to influence and lead others. It is both male and females. So it's everyone. But if the seminar is specific, like the one we're doing in Cape Town, it's for women. So there will be more women there than men. Of course, we've had men guests, but they are fewer than the female guests that we, attracting to that particular seminar because it is specifically for women.
So you plan for women. Have you had your seminar already?
The seminar is on the 4th of August in Cape Town.
Okay.
So the seminar is actually upcoming in Cape Town, and I think it's sold out, or there are still tickets. I think people who are interested can actually contact Symphonia Leadership.
Okay, that is Symphonia.
Yes.
There we go. Do they have an email address or do they have a web address as well?
An email address, let me just quickly check for you. An email address here. Sorry, I wasn't prepared for that particular question.
We'd love to have some information, just in case there's still seating available. Then obviously, if our listeners who are interested might just attend.
Okay, so the email address, they would be able to contact Tasnim.
Yes.
And the email address for Tasnim is, it is Tasnim, which is TASNEEM.
Yes.
At Symphonia, which is SYMPHONIA.net.
.net. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for taking time out to speak to us this morning as well, Mavis. All the success with your forthcoming talk, and that is on the 4th of August.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me on the show.
You're welcome. Bye-bye for now.